Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Career Chat. I'm Krista Harmon, one of the Career Readiness Consultants with the Kent Intermediate School District. And today I welcome Luis Perez. He's an applications engineer in the field of information technology. So welcome, Luis.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Well, I always love learning about people's jobs. And I know the students love to hear kind of the early part of your story. So take us back when you were a high school student. Did you think you'd grow up to be an applications engineer in this field of IT? Tell us more about that early journey.
Definitely not. No, I honestly, I didn't have any idea that I was going to be close to this. It was so confusing. And so for the record, I'm first generation college student. So I didn't know anything about even college, how to sign up for it, what classes, what a major. If you go to the university, you know, there's college. I didn't know any of that. And back then, I was just very curious. I grew up working with cars, so I knew that I liked doing things with my hand. Books were not really my thing. So reading, writing, any of that, that was not for me. But doing things with my hand, it was. So it was very interesting getting to know people and then getting to understand new things, and then, oh, I kind of like that, and discovering new things.
So you were really good with your hands and you loved working on cars. And because you were first generation, you didn't have role models necessarily helping you understand what college was all about. So what was that turning point? When did you start to realize that something about college was for you? Tell us about that.
I honestly don't know when that hit. The only reason I was applying to college is because one of my advisors was really encouraging me to apply, even though I knew that it was not for me. And I wasn't really thinking about going. But you know, she offered me multiple resources, and I was like, you know what, it's not going to cost me anything to apply. So I applied to multiple, got a couple letters, a couple saying, yeah, you got in, others saying, unfortunately, we cannot take you. It was fine for me. And then one school, Western, came in with a really good proposal with a full ride scholarship. And I was like, well, I don't really have money, and they are giving me free education. So it kind of worked out for me financially. I didn't know anything about Western Michigan. I didn't know where Kalamazoo was, because all I knew was Grand Rapids. I grew up in Grand Rapids, so that's all I knew in Michigan. So I was like, you know what? I cannot complain too much about this.
That's beautiful. So you have the opportunity to go to college for free. And so you were open enough to say, you know what, I'm going to try this. So you head off, and that's a huge culture shock, right? Because that's a whole different environment in itself. How did you start to navigate even then what your college major might be? Was it computers to start off with? Or was it something else that you kind of changed some majors early on?
No, it was, I think I actually had a very easy start, because I knew that I like working with computers and phones. That was my thing. So a little fun story. Back in high school, junior year, which is 2013. Back then, I didn't have a phone, but I used to have an iPod Touch. And for those who don't know, iPod Touch is kind of like an iPhone without being able to call people. And so that was very popular back then. And I was able to work around the iPod Touch and get it to jailbreak, and started downloading games for free, music, all those type of things. And that kind of got other people noticing that, and so they started paying me to jailbreak their devices. So at that point I was like, okay, I kind of like this. And so when I went to college, I knew, okay, I want to work with computers and phones and do things like that. And so what people suggested was to enroll in the engineering college to pursue computer science. So I did that. First semester, I didn't do, it was a mess. I was all over the place. Classes were super difficult. And so I had to really think to myself, is this what I really want to do? So I spoke with an advisor, and she told me, she kind of clarified things like, this is what it's going to look like in a couple of years. If you cannot do it right now, then maybe it's a time to start looking for something else. And that was kind of sad, because I always knew that I wanted to do that. But I was between two walls. And then the suggestion came in to move into the business college because they have a program called Computer Information Systems. So I was like, okay, I might give that a shot. So I transferred from the engineering to the business college, and it's a whole different universe. It was the business college, you know, you get to learn about marketing, sales, numbers, accounting, which things that I didn't care back then, because all I care about was computers. But you know, being in the business college, you need to take those classes. And so, you know, I started taking those classes, got more involved into what I was gonna do. As you go into the years in college, you get more focused into the things that you like or that you're gonna focus on. Until I got to a point where I started doing development, so software development for phones. And so back then, and at that point, I was like, okay, I'm getting back to where I was a couple of years ago. You know, building software, doing great things, building great things, and kept it going like that.
I love that story. I love a couple things specifically. I love that you didn't give up. I love that you had a rough start and you could tell that this computer engineering or the computer science wasn't such a good fit, but that you talked to somebody, you talked to the advisor, and even though maybe you didn't get the best career advice, you continued to persevere and found through probably talking to other people and research this switch to business with the computer information systems, and that ended up being the better fit. I also love that people noticed your ability to jailbreak and we're affirming you. And I guess I just want to encourage the young people on this Zoom that listen to people around you. You know, what are they asking you to help with? What are they asking for your expertise in? Because sometimes that shows up early and it is a skill set that can lead to a job. So I just love that, Luis, that some of those early things on the iPod Touch were affirming enough to you're like, I want to do this. I want to use computers. And so you went with it. So you graduated, and I'm sure there's a lot more to talk about, even in your college experience being a first generation. Is there something, maybe just one or two things that you would like to share with students that are on the Zoom that might be first generation themselves? What kind of lessons learned from that little period of your life?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing that kept me pushing is that my parents were always very supportive. They didn't know anything about computer science, computer information system, engineering college, so they didn't know any of that. But they trusted me. They knew that whatever I was gonna go for, they were gonna be happy with. And I think that support kind of made me feel better. Like, you know, if I messed up, that's gonna be fine. Everything's gonna be fine. This is me doing it first time. You know, you had to measure the level of risk you're going for. And for me, it was fine. And one thing that they wanted me to is get a job that, you know, that will allow me to do great things in the future. So have a safe career, essentially. And so that's pretty much it. Also, I mean, people sometimes talk about how advisors are so busy, they don't provide a lot of help, but try to get familiar with them because they do help a lot. I have one specifically where I was at a point where I was not doing great, even in the business college. And someone connected me with her, and she helped me a lot into the day I graduated. Because, you know, going online and looking at the curriculums online, it's kind of easy, but once you get in, if you don't know, every curriculum changes every semester. So you might be looking at the curriculum from last year, and when you go in next year, everything might be totally different. And so you need to understand that. Also, you are able to change some of the classes. So not because you see on the paper, it means that that's everything that they offer. So getting familiar with all of that and not giving up.
Yeah, I think that's such a good piece of advice, that things are fluid, they change, but having a mentor or an advisor that can kind of, you know, take you under their wing and help you go through the process. There's a lot of support at different colleges, especially for first generation. So make that choice to engage with them, right? Make the choice to get to know people because they can be a big support. I want to just go into a little bit about what your career is, and then I might go back to ask about a few transitions, but I think some young people on this call may not know, including myself, really, what an applications engineer is. So help us understand what that job is all about.
Yeah, so I think that's a very fancy title for what I do, honestly. So I work under the IT department. And some of the things that people think immediately when they think about IT is just, people working in a basement in front of the computer the whole time. I think that's what, the TV and movies kind of show what IT people do. Honestly, it's nothing like that. Personally, for me, in my role, I work as showcase, and being in a manufacturing company, I get to work with people in the factories. So my whole, I guess, objective or role is to keep those people up and running using good technology. So whatever I do is because they're gonna use it in some way and another way. So, let's think about scanning. If you go to Home Depot, you pick up the gun and you scan things, right? When you scan something, it has to go somewhere and do some type of processing and do some confirmations. So me and my team are the ones who are doing the whole thing after you scan. Pretty much. And being honest, there's a lot of things that break. There's always things breaking down every day. Each day is a little bit different. There might be days that I'm not doing any type of software development. I'm just in meetings because you cannot just get to your computer and start typing. There's a lot of discussions that happen. So even if you're one of those persons who think, I want to be in technology, but coding, typing is not really my thing. I like more people. You can still do that. There's project managers who all they do is just manage the projects. They don't do work in they don't do any type of development or design or anything like that. It's just managing the project. So my role really goes between project management, design, and then development.
Yeah, and I love that you're pointing that out because there are a lot of stereotypes around information technology jobs. And it sounds like your role of keeping things up and running, like you said, out on the manufacturing floor, for example, with the different machines. I mean, you're really helping millions of dollars continue to be earned. If things are down, that company is really hurting. So your job has a lot of responsibility. Do you like those challenges of problem solving? Is that something that's a natural trait of people like you?
Yeah, I like that every day is different. I don't come to the office knowing exactly what I'm gonna do. I have a rough idea, but things change by the minute. So I might be having a relaxed day, and then I don't know where I get an email that something went wrong, and now we gotta focus on that. And it could be something that we spend 20 minutes because I fix something quickly to fix, or it could be something that we spend 10 hours. So you gotta be really into that. One thing that if you go into IT is that you gotta be ready to be on call. So we have a rotation, but we are primary and secondary. So if you're one of those, even if it's 3 a.m, you might get a call because something broke down. You gotta get up. So sometimes that's not the most exciting things. But the idea of fixing something and then having it back up and ready, it feels great, honestly. And I think that's one of the things that I keep liking as I keep diving more.
Yes, I think that's important for young people to hear kind of the really good parts of jobs and the not so good parts of jobs. And so, yeah, being on call for young people who don't know what that means, it means that maybe for an 8-hour shift, you might be home. But like he said, if something breaks down, you have to go in. But are you getting paid for that on call time, or is that just part of your schedule?
It's part of my schedule.
Yeah. And like you said, you're not doing that alone. You have a team that you're sharing that on-call time with. So that's great. What are some of your favorite parts of your job?
Well, first of all, the office. I get to work in a pretty cool office. I can turn it around a little bit. So it's a cool space. The flexibility is another one. Obviously, as you know, COVID, people working from home. But even before that, we were able to work from home any day. So, and that's just not my company or Steelcase. That's many companies in IT. Because honestly, sometimes we don't need to be in the office. We could do our work anywhere. And that's a lot for, if you hear freelancers, there's a bunch of freelancers who spend their time, traveling and working because all they need is their computer. So the flexibility, that's another key part. My team members are very supportive. It's just like I like a lot of things, but more specifically fixing things.
Yeah, do you get to use your hands? Is that part of it? Because I know early on with the cars you were working with, do you get to get hands-on with computers? Or is it all software?
All software. I do get to go to the plants and work with the equipment. So that's fun. But no, I focus more on the software side.
Okay, so let me just take you back a little bit to college, because as you're pursuing your degree, and then did you have an internship that was part of your program at Western?
Yeah, so I had two internships. One was during my sophomore year, and that was marketing sales, which is nothing close to what I do now. But that's part of being in the business college, that you take all of those classes and you get to learn and do those things. So I was marketing sales for about a year. And then my junior year, I did an internship here at Steelcase. And so very different to what I was doing. When I was an intern, I was focusing more on the factory side. So I was actually in the factories, working directly with them. And then got a full-time position with them and now work in the office. So yeah, only two internships, but internships do help a lot. So that's one of the things you gotta focus on. There's gonna be a point where your grades are not gonna matter. And I don't mean in that even if you have a 2.5 GPA, because you need to keep that up. But you have to balance that with a good experience in internship. So when you're in college, try to focus on internships. And one thing that I will say now, if I think back, is start applying as early as possible, because you'll be surprised of how many companies will hire you, even if you're a freshman, sophomore year. Because typically the idea is that you get an internship in your junior or senior year, but I would say start even earlier and start with local companies, the smaller ones. Try to offer something that you already learned and then just go with it. Even if it's free for the couple first weeks or months, it's all about experiencing those couple early years for you, and then it will pay off in the long term.
Yeah, I love that. Now, did Western help you identify the companies, or did you have to go knock on the doors to find your own internship? How did that work for you?
They do help. Every university has different resources. For me, I kind of knew the companies and the people working there, so it was just pretty much just reaching out and expressing my interest.
Yeah, so your field, IT, is pretty in demand. So companies, like you said, are trying to recruit interns, which they're hoping to then make full-time employees. That's their goal. They're going to invest in you as an intern. So did you feel like you had to really know what you want to do, or were you okay with, hey, let's try this, let's try that? How much research did you have to do on the type of company you wanted to intern with, knowing that it might lead to a full-time job?
Yeah, I did very little research, honestly, now that I'm thinking about just one, because I went with one of the companies that is kind of big in the city. So I was like, oh, okay. And they are big for a reason, so I want to be there. But also another job that came in was with Kellogg's. So that was another option for me. But Kellogg's, it was going to be somewhere else, and I really didn't want to move or do the commute. So it was mostly here because it was just closer, and the company was a well-known one.
Yeah, and I think that I want the young people to hear that, because that's actually it's called affiliation. And that's one of my values. One of the first jobs I had, I wanted to work for a company because of who they were and what they did. And so that can sometimes be helpful when you're starting to narrow down where you might like to work. Some people I want to for sure work for a Fortune 500 company, or some people you know what, I want to work in a really small startup. So you can start to kind of read and look around and kind of start to think about that. But again, internships are for you to test things out. And so that's a beautiful opportunity. So you were an intern, and then that translated right into a full-time position. That's fantastic for you.
Yeah.
So has your job evolved while you've been at Steelcase? And how long have you been there? Has it started to change and you're kind of doing new things and new departments? Tell us about the journey.
Yeah, so I've been with the company close to 3 years. And my first year was just learning, because one thing is whatever you do in college is going to be totally different to what you do in the real life, because every company is different. The school does a great job making the foundation, and then you gotta be more flexible once you get the job, because they use different technologies, different languages, different devices, different everything. So for me, my first year was just learning. I was doing a couple small code change here and there, but nothing big. And then my second year, I started to get a little bit more into projects, switching roles. And then recently, I'm working more in planning and optimizing. So if you think about it, the easy way to think about this is if you have 10 items to send out, and how do you gonna fit those 10 items in 2 days? So trying to figure out those things. So yeah, a lot of change. Also, one thing that I think is great that I get to do is I don't just focus on IT, but lately I've been focusing on all the items of the company. So we have this section called Change Makers, which is all about innovating new things. So a couple of things that we get to work is with 3D printers, scanners, and robots as well. That's another cool one that we get to do. It's not part of my role. I spend very few hours there, but it's something that gets me distracted out of my day-to-day routine.
So it sounds like your company is pretty open to helping you have new experiences to help you grow and into these new areas. I think that's so fantastic. I really want to pull out though for a second and help young people understand what Luis said about that first year being learning. That's pretty much across the board. Everything you learn in college is a foundation, but every company has to teach you their ways. And I want you to know it's normal not to know everything. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's not easy to not be the one who knows everything, and you have to learn, but that's normal. I just want to put that out there. Anything else you want to say about that first year that you were transitioning to this corporate world, Luis?
Oh, yeah. Honestly, I was trying to prove myself that I belong here. And so I was working long hours. I'm talking about 12 hours, 14 hours a day, left the office, kept working at home. And now that I'm thinking back, and I'm like, why did I even do that for? I for sure learned a lot of things, but I wouldn't do it again. I don't think anyone should overwork themselves. Companies do get it. Your manager will get it that you don't know things. I'm 3 years in and I still don't know things. I talk to senior engineers who've been in the company for 25 years, and sometimes they don't know things. And it's a lot of communication between you and your team members to understand things. And you don't have to fix everything by yourself. You have people around you, go with them, talk with them, and just keep going that way. I think what you should avoid is trying to fix everything by yourself and getting stuck for days without fixing it. I think that's a red flag. I think the more communication you have, people are not gonna see you as weak if you ask questions. They're gonna see as someone, okay, they didn't get it, they try it out. Now they're asking questions, they go back, try something else. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but you keep going, you keep exploring, and that's a great thing to do.
I love that you shared that about communication is so important, and that you don't have to have it all figured out, that's part of real life at work, is that you don't know everything and you talk to people and you work out together. And that's why young people, they have you doing things in high school with teamwork and communications and group projects, because they're trying to teach you these skills that you'll need when you become a professional. Where do you see your future going, Luis? What are some things that you might have your eye on as you look forward in your career?
Yeah, so honestly, development is awesome. I think I'm having a lot of fun, but if I think about in the future, I want to start getting away from it. I want to focus on other things. I want to focus on being more project management, because I get to focus on different projects and not just dive deep into one. So that's one of them. I also love data. And that's a very strange place, because when people think about data, it's just about numbers, spreadsheets, Excel, but there's so much that go into it, especially telling the story based on numbers. So if you all take a survey, what would the survey say, and how do you present that in a good way so you can convince people? I really like those two fields, and I think I want to pursue one of those two. And currently, what I'm doing is just taking online classes and certificates so I can learn more. Not because I know I'm gonna get a new job, but just because of me that I can learn a new thing.
Oh, I love that. I love that you're continuing to grow and learn on your own. And I love it when I meet people who like data. That's not my thing, but I love that that's your thing and that you're going to keep pursuing that, and that there's places for you to grow. Yavin's just wondering, are there people then that work on the company's website and their online presence separate from what you're doing, correct? So there's even more parts to this IT world there at Steelcase. Tell us a few of the other jobs that you know about.
Yeah, so inside the IT department, there's over 100 people. So, and some of the teams are very small, some things are big. My team has 11 members, but there are some teams who are just 2 people. So there's the analytics team. They focus all about data. There's one team that is all about Salesforce. So if you don't know, Salesforce is about sales, and they're actually the ones who run the website. And even outside the IT department, there's designers who get to talk about, building beautiful things, nice icons. If you go to any website, I guess, and you look at the design, that's what they focus on. There's a lot also database. When you think about IT and engineering in general, you get the piece that is very creative, all about the users. How do you guys feel about this? And then there's the other side that is about logic. How does it work? Do we get from point A to point B? So, and then there's in between people who do both. So if you're one of those 3, nice.
And in December, we're going to have 5 different IT professionals, everything from a developer to an app developer, game design, all sorts of things. So if you do like this part of STEM, for those that are on the Zoom today, check out our website for career chats, and I'll put the link in there so you can come next month, starting Thursday actually, and learn about IT. I'm gonna give them a resource, Luis, where they can do a little more research. So think about a final word of wisdom that you might want to give them as we finish up today, because that half hour went really fast. We have about 1 minute left. So young people, Luis was so gracious to share his story and his experiences, but I'd love for you to do some more intentional research on careers in information technology. And if you go to onetonline.org, it's one of my favorite websites, and I'll show you why. I put in applications engineer, and these are just in a sample of the variety of jobs that are similar to what Luis does. And when you click on one of these, it's going to give you all sorts of fantastic information. Here you can see sample job titles. So as he mentioned, he has, if he thinks is a fancy title, but there's all sorts of different ways that these job titles are called depending on the department. But it talks about the kind of tasks that you'll do every day, what values are important to you, what type of typical work activities. It's just a fantastic exploration tool. And it also shares information about wages, what kind of education's needed. So check out onetonline.org. You can always follow up with me if you have a question for Luis. I'm happy to forward that to him. So my email is kristaharmon@kentisd.org, and I will put that link again for those that are earning sketches. So as we finish up, Luis, you've been a wonderful role model. Anything that you'd like to share with these young people who are exploring careers before we finish up?
No, just be curious. Be all about curiosity. I think the more curious you are, the more that you learn.
That's gold right there, Luis. That's gold. Be curious. That's so, so true. Young people, thank you so much for being here, Luis. You've been inspirational to many people. Lots of thank yous are starting to come into that chat.
It was great to be here.